Our time has flown so fast here.
Yes,
we all had
it's hard
tons
to
of stuff to
believe
tell you about, but we'll tell you about it next week because right now it's time for...
The Siren of Science.
Siren of Science.
The Siren.
She's
of
making an
Science.
entrance.
Here she comes.
Better play it again.
Ladies and gentlemen.
We haven't played it too much yet. Go ahead, try it again.
Okay.
And here she is.
Yeah.
The Siren of Sirens. Sirens?
Siren of Sirens.
Uh-oh.
Almost like, what's that?
The Siren of Science.
Yay! Hi, Jennifer.
Hello, everybody.
My.
Hi there.
Since I got here to the radio
You
station
guys are
with...
having so much fun here.
Yeah, well, I got to the radio station with less than 6 minutes after the fact there, so...
Well, thanks to me since I forgot your computer like
thanks.
a dork.
There you go. So we haven't even plugged Jennifer as much as we would, but then again, we just got the song back up, and that's really part of the whole thing. Anyway, so
As long as we got the science.
yeah. Oh, look, you even have there's show number 5. I love
Yeah,
that.
look at that. 5 weeks already.
You know,
Wow.
amazing.
It's hard to believe.
You know when you're
I think everybody has. Yes, it's
No.
just-
Idea what
we go.
printing that reaches out and grabs you. No. Okay.
Well, they talk about it. For makers and printer, and I mean, we can talk about what that means. But I wanted to talk about it in terms of medical applications.
Before we get to it, I have a blonde question for you, which is what is you always say the word polymer. Is that
Means a
materials? Okay.
This is a polymer.
Okay.
Plastics.
Okay, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah,
Please
but
continue.
actually, 3D printing can use other materials, not just polymers. Can use food, as I said. They're making three-dimensional food. They're exploring the boundaries of three-dimensional printing right now. And there was just a thing in the New York Times about 3D printing and the ethical implications of that. And you probably heard about something on the internet. There was someone who 3D printed a gun out of plastic,
Right.
And it
I
was
remember.
actually functioning. And there was it was big news. Like, oh my God, this is going to be very bad. Because people are printing all kinds of things, and then you don't actually have to go to the store and buy some proprietary device. So how are you going to protect your design? So that's kind of the big brouhaha over 3D printing. But
Does
anyway,
the gun work?
it did actually. Yeah, it was very scary. You take an image of something, or in the case of any design, you have like a CAD drawing. You've probably seen those, and you slice it. So you take slices, kind of like a CAT scan. In medicine, this is what they do. So a CAT scan, you've seen slices of somebody's brain or skull, and you feed that into the computer, and basically there's a platform, a build platform, and there's a laser, it could be, that traces out the outline of one of the cross sections of something. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was a cranial implant, actually. So let's say you're in a car accident and you have your head hits the windshield and you have a defect in your skull. You need to replace that with a piece of bone. But they just can't go to the store and get a piece of bone. So now the first FDA-approved cranial implant has been given to a company in Connecticut, and they're 3D printing these devices. So I'll go back to the process. So you have this platform. There's a powder that's down on the platform. The laser traces out a cross section of the piece of the implant that they want to make, and then once that slice is done, the platform moves down, more material is applied, and the laser then traces out the next layer, and it keeps building this device. So you can pretty much build anything you want. This is why you could build a gun. You could build anything with parts inside of other parts. Like there's a ball inside of a cage. You can actually build that with this technology. So, but the exciting thing about this device is that, number one, it's the first FDA-approved 3D printed implant. So now we're kind of entering a whole new phase of medicine here by using this technology, and by using this particular kind of plastic or polymer. It actually has the properties where bone will grow into it.
Oh my god!
Oh my gosh!
So they've determined that not only is it biocompatible, but actually bone likes it, and so bone is growing into this implant, this artificial implant, which helps with stability and over time its acceptance.
So it connects itself to it, or
connects
the
itself,
bones
right?
connect to it.
And normally, when you put in something artificial like a hip or even plates, they put plates in your skull. Now it's titanium or stainless steel, and they have to actually use screws or staples or things like that. Yeah.
Thank you, honey.
So when you go through the metal detector in the airport, you light up. So this is a very exciting thing.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Wow. And so that's just one. It's like just a pretty straightforward physical application, actually, in medicine.
Can I ask you a really weird question?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Are we kind of made the same way in a way?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, you think
it says some scientists.
If you figure like a zygote starts layering itself, or does it keep dividing? I mean, the way that cells divide like that, is it? It's. I mean, I know it's a different process. It's not like a slice of it, but when it's dividing, it's still making more. It's like a slice, except it's just
multiplying itself. Is that what you?
Well, I don't know. It's just the process of how it layers on itself.
I can see that. I think that's probably true in the very early embryo stage when all the cells are the same, but then they start differentiating, which is really the magic of
and that
humans.
is just incredible. It's
so
wild.
you start from the same potential cell, like we talked about a couple weeks ago,
the
stem cells.
thing,
Right.
So every cell starts out with the potential to be anything, but then as the cells keep dividing, then you get some heart muscle, you get some nerve cells and muscle cells, and I don't know who's directing that, but
that's
so
amazing.
it just becomes part of the body the way any organ would when it's implanted.
Or we're back to the implant.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yes. Well, it stabilizes itself. I mean, it doesn't go away, and bone doesn't replace it, but bone will grow into it. They call it osteoconductive. So the bone cells actually grow into this piece of implant, and so they're trying to get approvals for other facial reconstruction, all kinds of trauma like that.
Oh,
and
it's fantastic.
It's not really weight bearing, so I don't think that they can do it for hips or knees, but it could be a coating on a metallic device. But the other things that I wanted to talk about printing organs, which is really science fiction-y.
Wow.
But it's actually happening. So Chinese researchers...
And then maybe next week you can talk about printing Brad Pitt for some of my friends who would...
yes. I think they're a ways away from that.
You're going to have
some
to get a
girls I know would
sample.
take one or two slices. They don't even have to have the whole thing.
You need a lock of hair.
Yeah, you're going to need to get a DNA sample, sweetie.
Okay, sorry.
And the eye of a newt and something else. I don't know.
Okay, talk about organs, though. That's interesting.
Okay, so Chinese researchers have now moved from printing tissue, because maybe you didn't know this, but they've actually been printing skin tissue or muscle cells, pieces of organs, but they haven't actually.
Woo.
So this could be like for burn victims or something.
Exactly.
That'd be incredible.
Exactly. Right.
Wow.
But that's tissue generation. But now they've moved on from that, and they're printing living organs.
Wow.
So they're 3D printing organs, and they've been. The first example I'll tell you is about a kidney, actually. So this company is looking at same kind of operation using a hydrogel material as the scaffolding, and then you mix in cultured cells, kidney cells, and you basically print a three-dimensional structure. And there's something about this three-dimensional structure. When the cells are in 3 dimensions, they are performing much more efficiently and more productively. So they're able to break down toxins and secrete fluids and metabolize in this little structure. But right now, they're very small, so there's not enough of the cells to actually take over a whole kidney in a person. And the other thing is they don't live that long in the lab, just a couple of months, because they haven't been able to sort out the problem of recreating the blood vessel supply.
Oh.
So that's sort of a hurdle for the next level of these 3D printing of organs.
Wow.
Gosh,
That's amazing.
incredible.
That's amazing.
And then just to kind of put this into perspective, the very first human-to-human organ transplantation happened in 1954 at Harvard, and it was a kidney. It was a kidney to kidney, and there's a kind of a famous in the medicine world, a photograph of this operating room where the one team is harvesting the kidney and the other team is opening the other person up, and it's happening in the same room.
Yeah. Very Frankenstein-like.
And that was 60 years ago, and now they're 3D printing artificial organs. So
It seems like a
pretty
very
wild.
weird name, 3D, for the process you're describing. Because it doesn't really seem like a printer.
Well,
It's imprinting.
Okay.
I mean, it's imprinting that
makes sense.
material and whatever.
Yeah.
It's not like putting extra here, all about it kind of printing. Yeah.
Is this mostly privately funded in rather than like anything to do with our government doing any of this?
yeah, I don't think. Well, the NIH funds a lot of this research at universities, but it's mostly coming out of universities, and then companies will take it and bring it to the next level.
Gosh.
But some of the fascinating things about this is, in the future, patients may not need anti-rejection drugs for these kinds of printed organs because the cells that they're culturing can come from their own stem cells, like we talked about.
Right.
So you would take a sample of your fat tissue, basically, and you can, with 2 golf balls sized amount of fat, which who couldn't give that up? I could give up a few golf balls
I could
of
contribute
fat.
to others.
Whole legions. For me.
Eileen and I can make a goal to save a city. But anyway, yeah.
You could grow enough cells to create a whole organ.
Wow.
And then you wouldn't have to take these anti-rejection drugs, which is
Wow.
quite a problem,
It is.
actually.
Wow.
So they've also been working on a mini liver. And this might come in handy in the wine country, I have to say.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, isn't that the truth?
This a San Diego company has just set a new record with their 3D printed mini liver, that it's functioning as a liver for 40 days in the lab. Now, again, these can't be implanted anywhere because they don't have their own blood supply. But
Is that looked at as a huge amount of work to figure that out, or does that feel like just the final? Well,
I think it's a
whatever.
next
Yeah.
big step.
Yeah.
It's a big step because some, like liver and kidney and heart, they're very highly vascularized. So in order to get a functioning organ that you could implant in somebody and have it survive, it would have to be highly vascularized. So they have to figure out how to make not only the liver and the liver cells, but the actual blood vessels.
By the way, you're listening to us on The Guys at 5 on Mondays with Cynthia and Eileen and Cliff and Jennifer, our siren of science, who I think has given us a personal best. There's no other Guys at 5 show where anyone is saying vascularized. Thank you so much. Okay, the gauntlet's down, Guys at 5ers. Find a way to say vascularized on your show. Okay.
You'd win a lot of money in Scrabble with that one.
Of course, all these things, and I know we're being about hopeful and everything, but because a friend of mine just died because his liver quit, you just, it's wonderful. It's kind of a race against time,
Right.
and you think,
Right.
wow, I mean, it's like the friends that we've all had who died of AIDS seconds before something would have shown
Right.
up that would have let them live for a long time.
Right.
But still, fantastic.
And the things that I'm reading, they are saying that 10 to 15 years away, we're going to be seeing things like, artificial heart, a printed heart or a printed liver.
Wow. Now, do you find it interesting that the FDA already said yes? Because isn't that usually the last thing?
Well, they have been working on this
okay.
for quite a long
Yeah.
time. And that, as I said, is more of a physical device. This tissue engineering is quite a bit more dicey, and I think that's going to take a lot longer. But I just looked up on the Organ Procurement Network site. I was curious how many people are waiting for organs in this country.
Tons.
There's 120,000 people waiting
Gosh.
for organs, and they're mostly kidneys and livers.
Yeah.
So you're saying that in that amount of years, whenever it is, the doctor is going to say, listen, go down to the holodeck and get me a liver with these specifications right
No,
here.
because it has to grow with their cells.
Yeah, they would take.
It would be a longer thing
It would
than
be
that.
it would be a lab cultivation period of growing up your cells, but then there would be a place that you would send the cells to be incorporated into this three-dimensional structure that would become an organ, and then that would happen right before you go into the OR, and they would implant this device into you.
That's great.
Now, there is
That's
an
fantastic.
artificial heart.
Well, but
it's
but that's
got a lot of
isn't
problems.
it temporary until they get another heart to keep someone alive?
Yeah, it depends how. Yeah, because there's all kinds of issues with the power supply, and there's always usually something that has to go through the skin, and then there's infection issues, and then it's been a challenge for many, many years to
Isn't
get
that why
heart.
they've gone to animals' hearts because so many people can't?
Well,
take
they
that
use
transplant?
animal valves.
Oh, okay.
yeah, but
Yeah.
they don't use a whole heart.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about that baboon heart back when, but that didn't work so well. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy went ape. Never mind.
Oh, jeez. Bada boom.
Oh, we're here all week. Try the veal. Okay.
We're not saying you should eat veal, though. We're just
No.
saying.
Oh, no, we're not.
Hey, we have a chef coming up
Yeah,
soon.
but we'll ask her about veal. Okay, please continue. You have
Well, no,
that's it.
That was
Well,
incredible.
That's more
I mean,
than enough.
there's
That's
just
fabulous.
lots of examples of
Yeah.
this that are happening. There's some other people in the Cardiovascular Innovation Institute in Louisville, Kentucky, that's working on a 3D printed heart tissue that actually beats. I mean, this stuff is just wild. I'm
my
watching
gosh.
videos of this tissue that's in
beats.
the lab, and
Oh,
it's
my
actually
God.
beating.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then
The telltale heart.
But apparently, this kind of thing has been going on for years now. In isolation, the tissue engineering, it's called.
Right. Wow.
But this next step is incorporating it with other in a three-dimensional structure and getting it to survive longer periods in the lab.
So the thought of like limbs and things like that is just mind-blowingly bizarre.
I mean, that you could add it. You
yeah,
could go
like
to
you
that?
could, if someone lost a leg or something, and you could.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, maybe they would use a prosthetic device with skin over it or something.
Yeah. Like a
But they're
cyborg.
they're working on blood vessels now, so that are real blood vessels using endothelial cells on the inside and muscle tissue on the outside, and they're able to contract and dilate, and
Wow.
it's pretty wild.
How did they
actually.
engineer that? I mean, how does that?
It's a lot of tissue. Cell culture. The cell culture people are just like rock
They're wild.
stars.
They are.
They are. They really.
Now I'm going to ask you a really bizarre question, and why not? Because that's sort of the way I go. But I mean, I used to think that people like Walt Disney and everybody who put themselves in cryogenics, the minute before their body is completely taken over by something, I always thought, well, what's the point of that? But I'm wondering if the more you learn this stuff, the more you and James might put yourself on the register, because I wonder what you think about that. Like, is it now becoming sort of a more interesting idea that that eventually whatever has ailed somebody will be cured, or there'll be a way to deal with it?
Well,
or?
I think that is true, that eventually many of the diseases that we have now are going to be obsoleted because of this. That, what you're asking about, gets into a whole nother topic about consciousness.
Yeah,
because
Yes.
you could probably make a Frankenstein out of the bodies that are
of the Dalai Lama or something. Yeah.
Well, of the frozen Walt Disney.
Yeah.
But is he going to be Walt Disney when he wakes up
Right.
again?
Yeah.
No. Where does his consciousness go? That's the big question.
No, it'll be Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
So that's really,
that's right.
how do you preserve your consciousness and your identity? That's kind of a whole other thing.
That's an object.
But, you know,
That's hard for me every day.
yeah. There are people working on that too.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
computer people.
I just read something the other day. They were talking about they're getting to the point where they're finding that it's actually harder to prove death than not. In other words, it's harder to prove that something actually really, really dies versus, not just physically. I mean,
Right.
On the quantum lower.
Huh.
Yeah, I thought that was
So
kind
just
of an
because the heart stops beating doesn't mean you're necessarily dead.
I mean, if you're
Right.
if you're religious or you believe in reincarnation or anything like that, I think what they were saying is they think that the energy goes back into the
right.
to
It
the
transforms
yeah.
into another form of
Yeah,
energy.
or
and
something,
how
yeah.
do you-
Okay, everybody, we're going to go
now
on with
we're
this
really
discussion,
getting
the
on-
eternity of consciousness.
No, but I mean,
in our
it's
next-
just that
I know.
it's, but it's yeah.
At another time. But Jennifer, once again, thank you so much for being the highbrow portion of our show with we three idiots just lobbing stuff at you nonstop. And I think it's time for her music, honey. Thanks.
Silence.